All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call to order the Stevensville Town Council meeting for Thursday, July 23rd, 2020. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Councilmember Devlin.
Here.
Councilmember Holcomb.
Here.
Councilmember Michelson.
Here.
And Councilmember Vick.
Here.
Great, thank you. We'll do a quick screen share and do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We have not received any public comment tonight through any of the mediums that we typically receive it through on virtual meetings. Janelle, is there anything in the Dropbox this evening? Okay, thank you. We'll move into approval of the minutes you have before you tonight. June 11th, June 16th, June 17th, June 23rd, and July 9th, 2020 council meeting minutes, budget workshop minutes, and public hearing minutes. There is one correction we need to note on a set of minutes where the council discussed or rather approved the connection of Mr. Reeves to the water system, and the motion for that incorrectly states in the draft minutes that you're approving annexation. The recording, of course, says otherwise. We understand that, and that was a carryover issue from the software that helps us write our minutes. So that correction has been or will take effect upon approval tonight. We're aware of that, and we will fix that. So that's one correction you should note to the minutes. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
So moved, instead of reading all those.
Is there a second for the minutes?
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion from council?
Yes. Also on that same page, which is page 7, just a little bit up, there's a misgendering of Mr. Michelson in a couple of paragraphs above that.
All right. Thank you. Remember that. All right, if there's no further comment, then we'll call for the vote on approving the minutes. Councilmember Devlin?
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb?
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson?
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. And Councilmember Vick?
Aye.
Vick votes aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Real quick question, Mr. Mayor. I noticed last night on Zoom it said that the meeting was being recorded. I'm not seeing that same tonight.
Should be now. All right. We do a redundant recording, and that's what you saw. That's the backup recording. The primary recording happens on our cloud for us. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. All right. We have approval of biweekly claims. While the claims aren't noted on your agenda, a packet of claims was sent out to council this afternoon. Mr. Underwood crammed some bills in so that we were back up to speed on paying the bills. Let me pull those up real quick. Come on, internet. Robert, do you have those claims in front of you?
Yes, I do.
You want to go through the beginning number and ending number for the record?
Okay. Just hold one. Okay, it should be One of the claims was for the turning in the FR, and that was on actually the sheet from last night's claims, but the number wasn't covered, and that was for $950, and that was claim 16100. And then so we'll go through claim 16126 tonight, and that's the last one will be the Northwest Energy claim. I don't know if you saw it. Everybody should have a copy of the claims. And if there's any questions,
Do we hear a motion to approve claims 16100 through 16126?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Devlin to approve claims 16100 through 16126. Discussion. Ms. Holcomb.
On page 1, I think that's page 1. It's claim number 16101 for $1,602.44 for McKesson Medical Surgical.
yes,
Those are medical supplies for the fire department.
Oh, okay. It just looked weird. It looked like someone had surgery or something.
No, that's the company. That'll be the vendor name there. And then below that, you'll see a description where it says FD.
Oh,
Medical.
okay. I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions from council?
I have a question, Brandon.
Okay.
I see where Strawman Associates have did our audit. Is there any timetable when that will be released to the public or into the council?
Robert, you're on mute.
they're just finishing up. I'm doing the replies to the findings now, and they should have that published in the next week. We had like about 6 findings, and some of them we anticipated, just the same ones as we had before with the Firemen's Relief Association being over on some of the funds, which we knew about. And so none of them are really anything new that we didn't anticipate. Some of them were 2 of them were findings that were already corrected. So it was just a point, and we'll get them out to you once they actually publish them, and we'll put that in the paper too.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any further discussion from council on the claims? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Holcomb.
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Michelson.
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. And Mr. Vick.
Aye.
And Mr. Vick votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move into administrative reports. We first have up the airport. Mr. Underwood, do you want to give an overview of what's going on at the airport?
Yes, right now the construction of the airport taxiway and aprons are underway. We have the taxiways finished and the midfield taxiways finished, and they're working on the 2 aprons right now. One of the issues they ran into earlier, late last week, was they found some organic material on where the aprons were at, so they had to dig down further, and then they had to contact the FAA. We had to contact them, and then we had to get it tested, because if it doesn't pass the test, we have to take out all that material and then bring in gravel, which would cost another about $200,000. But we're working with the FAA for funding. We're working with the engineers and working with Morrison Merrily to work with that. There's a couple contingencies. One, we only do one of the aprons if we do have to replace all the material, or the FAA comes up with some funding or some workaround funding for us for next year. And so we possibly front up the money and then get paid back. They're working that right now. However, the guy who came out and did the test, they have this little rod and weight that they actually test the ground with. And the test, even though the test isn't back yet, the ground was so hard it broke their rod, so they had to order more rods in. So that's a good sign that the ground is pretty hard. So I think we're doing pretty good on that. But we'll know that probably by next week. So, but right now all the construction's halted until we get the test approved.
Any questions for Robert? Ms. Holcomb.
I was just wondering, how are you coming along trying to finding someone to replace Robert at the airport? Is that
With the
Amen.
adoption of our budget last night, that position's been formalized as a compensated regular employee. And so as early as next week, you'll see us start advertising for that position, and then go through the recruitment process like we would any other employee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the building department report that's included in your packet this evening for your review. Robert, do you want to cover finance? You're muted still. Still muted, Robert.
Here we go. Okay.
Good job.
A couple things. We did, obviously, we talked about getting the CARES grant. Our first tranche of our CARES grant came in. We got $33,447 with an additional $1,566, which went from the FEMA back to the feds to pay us. So we should see that check too. And that would cover us from March 12th to May 30th. I'm in the process of preparing another one for all our expenses in May, which basically is some supplies and our police department and fire department wages. And so that will be paid for. And then what it looks like, they are going to pick up the cost of our police and fire department wages until December 2000 to the end of the year right now. And so that's kind of that's already in the budget that we planned on that. Not all of it, but a portion of it. So that's a good deal. Doing some quick analysis before we close the year. Last year, we end up with about $64,000 more cash than what we started with, which is a good thing. Our AFR is in to the state. Though it was late, we had some, with the COVID issues, there was some stuff going on, and with Jennifer and doing the special audit, she's really helped out a lot. And I like her. She got found some stuff from years before, but it's all accounting stuff, and so they work with the auditors to figure out how to make that work. There's some disagreement between both auditors on how things can go, but it's all financially and nothing's material. So when that's done, she's going to come out and give us a report, and we'll move forward with that. Like I said, the audit's finishing up. We had a few findings. I'll get that out to the council so they can take a look at it once they approve it, or send out the final draft and our recommendations to move forward. And that's all I have for tonight.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Are there any questions? Okay. We'll move on to the fire department. Chief Motley.
You guys should have a copy of the June stats in the packet. Real quickly, we had 43 requests for service in June, 18 in the town, 22 within the district, and 2 mutual aids, 34 medical responses, and 9 fire calls. So year to date, as of the end of June, was 309 requests for service, which is pretty much on par for what we normally do. So that part of life is going on pretty much as we normally do. Of course, the forest is drying out very fastly. Fire weather from the forest today was, starting to get into the high to extreme with a little thunder thing that came through here this afternoon. We may see a few starts and lights, but it's that time of year. So that's going to be going on. We'll see what all materializes there. Other than that, I do want to make sure everybody's aware that Colette is now the new administrative assistant for the fire department, replacing Brittany, and is doing a fantastic job for us so far. Very quick to learn and pick up, and it's going to be a new world, a new department upstairs with the addition of Colette to staff. So that's a great thing going forward. Other than that, we're pretty much business as usual. We're starting to do some more repairs on some equipment. So our biggest issue right now to date is getting gloves, medical gloves, for the QRU. Our current vendor wouldn't fill us because we didn't have allocation. However, we were able to get 2 boxes of extra large gloves And the comment was, well, anybody can wear an extra large glove. Not real good, but they can. I mean, their hand will go in it, but they may not be able to perform. So anyway, we're struggling. We're fighting through to get some gloves. And other than that, we're doing pretty good. We've got all of our supplies and functioning well. So we just keep on keeping on. We're following our COVID PPE protocol as far as masks and gowns and eye protection and all those things, and limiting our exposures as much as we possibly can as a fire department, working in conjunction then with the Marcus Daily ambulance and their staff as well. So far, so good. Everything's been going fine on the COVID front for the fire department. No big issues. So any questions? Thank you.
All right, Parks, Mr. Sunstein.
Yeah, so there's some updates. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, my computer's acting weird. But no, so there's an update to the report to council that's submitted in the packet. It's a little dated with like swimming lessons and things of that nature, so I'll go through that. The pool's been open since June 29th. We are closing it this Saturday, July 25th, to address the construction needs that it has. While it's been open, we've had a max capacity limit of 50 people. We've limited the number of people in the lobby to 3 in the lobby, 3 in each changing room, and we've asked that people wear masks while inside the building. We did some updates to the website early on just to update all the lesson forms and things. For lessons this year, for session 1 of group lessons, we only had 6 lessons, but we did have 22 lessons that are currently in progress for the second round of group. In light of COVID, we've seen a huge uptick in our private lessons reservations. Due to only having 5 guards this year, we are doing as much as we can. Session 1, 6:29 to 7:03, we had 8 lessons. Session 2, 7:06 to 7:10, we had 14 lessons. And then last week and this week currently, we have a full docket of private lessons maxed out at 20. In the parks, Lewis and Clark, we painted 60 10-foot circles for the 4th of July fireworks show that was down there just to try to promote social distancing amongst our community. We put up new basketball nets down at Lewis and Clark Park. And then Lewis and Clark Park, Father Valley, and Lang Park, we've been sanitizing those 3 times a day since June 1st. In light of that, we just hired on a park attendant this week, Kirsten. So she started Wednesday and she's been a great help, just taking a little bit off my plate because I've been stretched pretty thin trying to get around to every park that many times per day. Doing trash cleanup every morning. And then down at River Park Trail, we cleaned up the area around the pavilions, weed whacked it and mowed it. And then going forward, we're actually going to go in and maintain that trail some, with hopes of doing August programming for children in our community, doing some nature walks down there. And then we also had a community cleanup day last weekend that is not on this report that's in your packet, but we did have about 30 people come out and help. We weeded the gardens on Main Street. We did trash cleanup on Church Street, Main Street, and Buck Street. And we also removed the half fence around Lewis and Clark parking lot that really opened up the space. And we've had a lot of compliments and it looks really nice down there.
Great. Thanks,
Any
Bobby.
questions?
Any questions? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marvel with the police department report.
I didn't hear that, Brandon. Did you say police?
Yep, it's your turn.
Okay, didn't come through real good. Sorry about that. So page 28 of the agenda packet is the start of the police report. And if you take a look at it, change the format just a little bit. But to start off with, just to kind of hit on what I talked about previously with regards to Stevensville Crime Watch program, we do have more applicants and we're going to start processing those applications very soon. Very excited about getting that up and running. That's, I think, going to be a tremendous asset to our community moving forward. And we are going to start putting a police blotter on the police department's website as well. And that will just essentially be the same, possibly a little bit different than what I provided in the report that you can see. And if you have it pulled up, I don't know if any of you do, but if you look at it, the computer's indicating that we've had 96 calls for the month of June. And the top calls that we were receiving were suspicious persons or suspicious activity circumstances, followed by traffic stops, animal issues, some anonymous reports, and usually those have to do with drug information and so forth. Animal noise complaints, littering. So we've kind of got a smattering of a lot of different things going on in town, but primarily it's just people observing activity that is suspicious in nature and wanting us to get involved, which is great. That really speaks to, I think, the need for the Crime Watch program as well in general. So does anybody have any questions or any concerns regarding the new format?
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Georgia's Public Works Department report is included in your packet as well for your review. George is not able to join us this evening. We don't have any guests to recognize, and so we will move into the correspondence portion of the agenda. Correspondence is available. There isn't any additional correspondence to present to council other than what is included in the packet tonight. Is there any desire from council that these pieces of correspondence be read into the record? Okay, otherwise we will ensure that this correspondence is included in the meeting minutes. We have no public hearings or unfinished business tonight. And so we're taking care of business with new business tonight on discussion decision an agreement with HDR Engineering for the 2020 Water System Preliminary Engineering Report. You will recall earlier in the year where we sent an RFP out to the region asking for proposals and on water system in preliminary engineering report. It's been some time. I think the last engineering report was done in the era of maybe 2013. This preliminary engineering report aims to primarily address water storage for the water system. This was something that's been planned since the 2013 water system upgrades. So we're bringing the contract. Of course, HDR Engineering was the only firm to put in for the preliminary engineering report. We've gone ahead and asked them to, after you've accepted that RFQ, we asked them to put together a scope of services and a contract, which is before you tonight for your approval. Are there any questions?
Brandon?
Yes, Mr. Michelson.
So $40,000, you're not going to go any higher than that, is that correct?
The contract amount is 40,000. If there is a need to go exceed that 40,000, a change order would come before council.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think Mr. Capera is on Zoom with us someplace. So if you have any questions specifically about the proposal or HDR, he is available to answer those questions. If there aren't any questions, I would entertain a motion to authorize the contract.
I'll make a motion to authorize the agreement with HDR Engineering for the 2020 water system PER.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Mr. Michelson to authorize the agreement with HDR Engineering for the 2020 water system PER. Any further council discussion? Receiving any comment? All right, with that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb.
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson.
Aye.
Aye. Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
Vick votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next on your agenda is new business item B, discussion decision, airport lease agreement for Lot 8, Block 1. The lease agreement is included in your packet this evening, standard language. However, this lease agreement is an increase, right, in square foot rate. Is that correct, Mr. Robert, or Mr. Mike, excuse me, Underwood?
Yes, it is.
Right. So the new rates are before you on a later agenda item. However, we did put this agenda item ahead of it. So you are approving this lease with a new lease rate of 14 cents per square foot annually.
Quick question. Do we, would we need to handle, the new business for resolution 478 to officially increase the lease rate before accepting this, this lease agreement?
You can if you want to. The intent is clear. It's all on the same agenda and it'll be part of the same record. The lease frankly, won't be executed until tomorrow anyway, at best.
All right, then I'll make a motion to, go ahead.
Hello, Robert.
Yes,
Robert, on it says the airport land lease. The land lease is made and entered into the 4th day of September. Is that when the rates take effect?
that's when the transfer will take effect between the two parties.
Okay.
He's buying out someone else.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. This is a. Okay, I got it now.
So existing hangar, an existing lease, and one person is essentially taking that lease over from another. And they want that done on the 4th of September. So that's when that will go into effect for that individual. So I think to Mr. Vick's question on the rate, the lease isn't technically in effect until the 4th of September. I mean, you're fine in terms of deadlines and I thought maybe Jamie had a question, but she does not. Okay, if there are any questions on the lease, I'd entertain a motion from council to approve the lease as it's presented, Lot 8, Block 1.
I'll make a motion to approve the airport lease agreement for Lot 8, Block 1.
There's a second.
I'll second it.
Moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Holcomb to approve the airport lease for Lot 8, Block 1. Any further council discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb.
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson.
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
Vick votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. All right, we're on new business item C, discussion decision, authorization of water and wastewater connection for unannexed property at Middleburg Fork Road and Logan Lane. As it's noted in the agenda item request form, this is in a response to a letter from the Bitterroot Star where a decision was not properly noticed on a previous agenda. We addressed this to a degree in the minutes where the council made the decision instead of annexation, you moved forward with authorizing the property owner to connect to the water system. That item language wasn't specifically listed and that decision wasn't listed on the agenda in a way that really complies with noticing and an oversight on my part in facilitating the meeting. So in order to remedy that situation and to prevent any harm or wrongdoing down the road, we wanted to bring this item back before the council as an agenda item for authorizing wastewater and water services as your original decision was stated.
I'll go ahead and restate my original motion from that night where authorizing the connection to water and sewer for Mr. Reeves while the town continues to research the routes to annexation and easements.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Devlin to authorize the connection of water and wastewater services by Mr. Reeves while he investigates easements and further annexation. Further discussion from council? Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb.
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson.
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
Vick votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. The next agenda item is agenda item D, new business D, discussion decision on resolution 478, adopting fees for permits and lease rates charges at the Stevensville Airport. A memorandum from Mr. Underwood, the interim airport manager, and our finance officer is included in your packet with the resolution. The airport is proposing to increase the new lease rate to 14 cents per square foot annually. Old lease rates are currently set at 6 cents per square foot, and we're proposing that those be increased by 10% for the next 10 years, as allowed by the leases that are currently in place. When those leases expire, or the existing leases expire, then those folks will be moved on to the new 14 cents a square foot rate. But we have a number of leases, of course, that are considerably lengthy, and so as time moves on, those folks are going to be going to see a 10% increase, which you'll note on 6 cents is not a ton of money anyway. But in order to catch us up and make sure that we're actuarially sound, collecting fees and paying for the services we provide at the airport, we want to take some proactive and have this resolved for next year's billing.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 478.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Holcomb to adopt resolution 478. Any questions or discussion from council?
I have a question for Robert.
Okay.
On item number 4, on the resolution, on the very bottom, airport user fee. What's the through the fence users permitted?
That language came frankly from the last resolution that was adopted for fees. And I would imagine what that means, and Robert, maybe you can expound, but I think through the fence users is a user of the airport. They may not fly in and out every day, but they are a user of some kind.
So they're charged $125 also?
Yeah.
Correct.
And then we're kind of working through that process because anybody that uses the airport should be paying a fee. And that the user fee was $125, still is. We're just kind of trying to police that up because there are some users who basically have this airport as their home base and they haven't paid a fee. So we're in the process of policing that all up. Anybody who pays a fee, a user fee, or uses Stevensville as their home base. If they fly in and they tie down, they use the tie down rate. It's you'll see later on in my memo there. So anybody that's using, the idea is anybody that's using the airport pays the fee. See, someone can rent a T hangar and not pay anything. The T hangar, except for the rent for the hangar to the person who owns the hangar, but nothing comes to town. So this fee was designed for, anybody with a plane. There's a discussion on how many planes they can have. And I think we've come up with the answer of one user can have 2 planes up there, and he pays that annual $125 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from council? All right, bear with me, folks. I just want to absolutely make sure I'm getting a report that maybe public comment isn't working through our website. And so I just want to verify that it is before we move on. So just bear with me for a moment. Not seeing through. Okay. If there is anyone out there watching the stream and trying to submit comment, we are monitoring the forms and not seeing anything come through our website. So if there is a work something to narrow that down. With that, is there anything further from council on the agenda item at hand? Mr. Underwood, go ahead. You're muted. You're still muted, Robert.
Oh. I'll get the button right one of these days. Just to let you know that 10% for 10 years, at the end of 10 years, that will equal 14 cents per square foot, if anybody's interested.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything further? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin? Let's try again, Jamie. I didn't catch you.
Aye.
Thank you. Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb?
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson?
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. Councilmember Vic?
Aye.
Vic votes aye. All right, motion passes unanimously. That concludes the business portion of tonight's agenda. I've more or less given an executive report to you last night. Some happenings you've heard from the department heads this evening. As I mentioned, we are trying to handle this virtual meetings piece as best we can. This is really just our second real full-fledged council meeting. And so, if we're having challenges with public comment and receiving those, we want to hear that. And if for whatever reason the form doesn't work, you can always email info@townofstevensville.com and we'll try to catch those as well. Otherwise, in terms of COVID-19, we continue to respond to the best the town can. We're working with state resources to make sure that supplies can still be received, but they're experiencing the same limits in supplies that the rest of us are, which is troubling to a degree. But nonetheless, we are trying to work through that. That one came through, Dempsey. Thanks. At any rate, we continue to try to handle that. Of course, we're seeing our public health department in the news lately, and that's also a bit troubling, as Stevensville heavily relies on our county public health department to relay information and provide guidance. Although, sometimes that is limited as to what we can do in terms of collaboration. We do hope that those troubles are figured out, because we don't really have much else in terms of a resource. So with that, I don't have much else to report in the executive report this evening. Council comments. Council members have any comment tonight?
I kind of do. It's interesting that you brought up the public health. In thinking about the turmoil that they're kind of going through, and I don't know what, maybe you could speak to the interactions that you've had actually with the county public public health, but has Stevensville ever entertained the idea? I think it's kind of intriguing, of having a public health, I don't know, office of its own here in Stevensville. I don't know if that's something that maybe had been in the past or something to go about entertaining. I don't think communication with the different cities and towns within the valley has gone very well through this COVID. And of course, that's navigating new territory and waters. I'm just wondering if that's a need that could be filled here in Stevensville.
I can speak, Jamie, to your inquiries about interaction between the town and the public health department, and those interactions primarily happen through a press release. So if we have specific concerns or reports to give to public health, we've been able to express those to them, and for the most part, they've been able to address. One piece of information that the town has had a challenge in acquiring is the number of positive cases within the town's jurisdiction or within our incorporated boundaries. Public health has been reluctant to turn that information over to the town. That being said, there is a process into place for emergency services to obtain that through 911 should that need to be the case. But from a decision-making standpoint from the administration, we've not been provided with those details to know, what does community spread look like in Stevensville? The information we do receive from public health is the same information that they provide other stakeholders in the valley, and including the press. So it's typically in the form of a press release where I think they just recently brought on a information officer whose sole job is to do those communications, and he's been doing those out, and I pass those along to staff as I'm able. That's really the limit of our communication. I think that COVID-19 caught a lot of us off guard, and because it accelerated so quickly, and kind of, back in March, it really got out of hand very quickly in terms of how we responded and shut things down. And a lot of that we were ahead of the curve on and shut things down early. But to your point, I can tell you from the history I'm aware of, no, Stevensville hasn't had its own public health board or public health department. In smaller communities, that's usually handled through the county. In larger communities, especially those in the first and second class of cities, which are 20,000 and higher generally, those folks either have joint boards between the city and county where it's joint representation, or those cities have their own public health departments, and they're funded either by mills out of the general fund, or a combination of those and state funds and federal funds, those dollars that are allocated to public health. So, I would certainly, if that's something that the council is interested in hearing more about in terms of what those options might be, I just need to hear that, and we can investigate that further. It's an interesting concept.
So one other avenue of that is, I believe that there's CARES money that could be used to help fund and facilitate kind of, if that's something we were interested in, I believe that we would be able to get funds to start that program.
I think so. I think that's something that Mr. Underwood could probably investigate further. As long as we're responding to the public health crisis at hand, CARES is generally open to whatever we need the expenses. And that's evident in the idea that right now, through December 31st, they're covering the wages of our police officers, all of our public safety personnel, the honorariums of our chief and or of our fire chief, right down into administrative staff that's handling public safety issues. So yes, it's very broad. So it's possible that there may be funding to help plant the seed for something like that, even if that is a temporary piece that we just use to respond to this public health crisis. I think the determination would need to be, does the county have the capacity to serve Stevensville, or is Stevensville better served on its own? That, I guess, what I'm hearing is that's the question you're asking.
That's exactly the question I'm asking. If it's worth entertaining that. It's kind of an intriguing idea. So
Sure.
I can kind of give a little response to that. We do the climate change board, which still has no members. If we could try to recruit some membership into that, public health was a part of that proposal into that board.
Okay. Jamie, does that conclude your council comment tonight? I know we kind of went into it.
yeah, it does. I kind of need a little bit of feedback to see if I was even in the ballpark of what's kind of an intriguing idea, like I said. So
Sure.
yeah, appreciate it.
I guess, to entertain that concept, it sounds like Ms. Devlin's kind of seeking further feedback from the council. Does anybody else on the council care to weigh in? Mr. Michelson.
That's a great idea, Jamie. The only thing is, public health is usually a county level. And like Brandon spoke of, state and federal dollars go in. If you get that started through a COVID grant, it'd be pretty hard to keep a nurse or a doctor, because that kind of goes along with public health, I would assume. So that would be a great idea down the road, but as the town grows. But right now, I don't know if the town could support that long term.
Is there anything further from council on that subject? I'm happy to prepare a discussion or a council communication back to council in the form of a memo. Sounds like there's some questions that still are outlying and maybe some hesitation because there's a lack of information. Sounds like these questions will be easily researched and we can put that together in a memo and give it back out to council.
I'd appreciate that.
Any other council comments of general nature? Nope. Board reports, we went through this last night, but just in case somebody had a thought changed this afternoon. All right, nothing there. Okay, everyone, that concludes the agenda. We are next scheduled for a council meeting on, let's see, the 13th of August. Just as a quick update, we'll get the swearing in of Janelle scheduled here before long. We're working through transition to get some folks in order to make sure that duties are covered on both the police side and in the town clerk side, of course. We can expect Ms. Berthoud to take that position on the 3rd of August. She'll be fully installed there. And then we'll hit the ground running with preparing our August 13th agenda. So until then, enjoy the rather long break we have. Of course, if we have something come up that we need a meeting for, then you'll be hearing from us. Other than that, we'll adjourn. So thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
As well.